Hi there. In this exercise we are going to create a game called Flappy Parrot, and in the game we are going to control a little parrot that's going to go around and collect some fruit. In the meantime he's got a bad guy who's going to be bouncing around the screen trying to take away our lives. So first things first, I'm going to delete our cat, and I am going to choose a nice background for myself. So I have my stage here, and I'm just going to go to the scripts, and in this area is where I'm going to create the variables, the scoring system and stuff. So let's get started inside here then. Okay, let's go to data, and we're going to make a variable, and we need a score, and we also need some lives. So let's go to events then, and we'll bring in our green flag, and we're going to say to our computer, when the game starts we're going to set the lives to 3, and we're going to set the score to 0. Okay, and what we're going to do then is we're going to go to control, and we're going to bring in wait until. Now what we're going to say to the computer is we're going to wait until my lives go down to 0, and then the game is going to finish. So we need to tell the computer when lives equal 0. So if we go to operators, we find the equal sign, pick it up, we put it in here. So wait until blank equals blank, and if we go to data, you see we've got lives and we've got score here. So I can pick up lives and I can put that in there. So wait until lives equals 0, and then what we're going to do now is when lives equals 0, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to wait for a second. And what we're going to do then is when lives run out, we're going to send a message out to the entire game that the game is over. And to do that, you go to events, and there's something in here called a broadcast, which means send a message outwards. So pick up broadcast, and instead of message 1, you're going to type in a new message, and you're going to type in game over. Okay, so wait 1 second, broadcast game over, and then you're going to go to stop all. Now if I press the green flag, you'll see that my lives go to 3, which is exactly what I want. Let me just pick these up and move them over here. So we've got the score and we've got some lives. Brilliant stuff. Okay, so what I might do actually is I might just quickly rearrange these a minute. So when lives are 0, broadcast game over, wait 1 second, and stop all. That's what I'll do. Okay, so let's bring in our character that we're going to control here. So I'm going to go to our new sprite. I'm going to go to animals, and I'm just going to scroll down here, and I find Parrot. There we go, and there's the parrot that I want. Okay, and then let's go to events, and let's bring in our green flag. Okay, so when the green flag is clicked, so let's get the easy pieces of code out of the way. So for instance, his size, he's far too big. We also need to figure out where he's going to start on the screen, and we also need to figure out what direction he's going to be facing in too. So first things first, let's click on the little information box here, and you can give your parrot a name if you wish, and just make sure that your parrot can't go upside down. So we click on this little arrow here. Okay, and now let's bring in the important pieces of code. So let's go to motion, and let's bring in go to. Where is our parrot going to go? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly bring in a background. You don't have to do this, I'm just bringing it in just to show you our coordinates here. So I actually want my parrot to start perfectly somewhere around here on the screen. Okay, so I need to, so for our X, which is this line here, I want the parrot to start somewhere around there, halfway between this line and this line. And as you can see, this is minus 100. And as you can see here, this is minus 200. So halfway will be about minus 150. And I want my parrot then to start here on this line. So it's in the middle of the screen, and if you look at my Y line here, let me just move these out of the way so we can see it says Y there. So the blue line is the Y line. That's 100, there's minus 100, and this bit here in the middle is 0. So I press the green flag, that is where my parrot is going to start, but at the moment he's far too big. So before I change his size, I need to make sure that when the game starts he's always pointing in the right direction. So I do want him to face rightwards, which is 90. Okay, and then let's bring in our simple pieces of code. So anytime you want to change your sprite's appearance, you always go to looks, and we're going to scroll down here, and we're going to say set size to, and I'm going to change it to 30%. There we go. And then, do you want to see your parrot when the game starts? Yes, you do. So we bring in show. So if I pick him up now, press the green flag, he's always going to start there, which is exactly what I want. Okay, so that's the easy stuff. So I'm just going to quickly go back here and change my background back to the nice one. Okay, so that is the simple pieces of code done. And all I want to do now, as soon as my game starts, is to make my parrot look like he's flapping his wings. So as you can see in his costumes here, he's got 2 costumes to make him look as though he's flapping. So it's kind of building on code that you've used before. So if you go to control, okay, or if you just go to looks for a second, you go to next costume here. If we just connect that up here, you press the green flag, and he'll only change his costume once. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that he keeps flapping his wings. And I'll keep tapping the green flag here, and you can see he only flaps them wings when I press the green flag. So if we go to control, we can bring in our forever, and I'll press the green flag, and you can see now, if I click on costume, see how quickly the computer is doing that. I'm just going to slow that down and put it to 0.1. Okay, or even that's too fast. 0.3, there we go, that's better. So there he is flapping his wings. Okay, so there's our first block of code done. So this is all of the simple stuff out of the way, where he starts, the direction he faces, his size, and we can see him when the game starts. And this little block down here then, from forever, is just making him flap his wings. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly move this block just over here to make some space, and I'm going to bring in another green flag. And the reason why I break the code up into pieces like this is if there's one long line of code, the computer processes this, reads all the code in an order. Okay, so things won't work the way you want it to if it's all in one big long line. So I'm just going to quickly bring in another forever. Okay, and this time I want my parrot, just like Flappy Bird, he's going to constantly be falling down on me. Okay, so I'm just going to go to motion, and we're going to bring in change Y, and remember Y is that line that goes up and down. Okay, and I want him to, if I leave it at change Y by 10, press the green flag, he goes upwards, and that is not what I want. I want him to go downwards. So if I type in -10 and press the green flag, you'll see he falls downwards very, very quickly. Okay, so I don't want him to move that fast, so I'm going to type in -5. There you go, and you can see him there flapping away. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I want to be able to keep my parrot from falling that much. I want him to actually be able to press a button to keep him afloat. Now remember, every time you press the green flag, he's always going to be falling down by -5. So what we need to do is be able to press a button to make him go higher than that, okay, to make him go up a little. So I'm just going to quickly go to Events, and I'll bring in another green flag, and I'm going to bring in a Forever. But this time I'm bringing in a very important line of code here, the if statement. I'll put the if inside. So if I press a button, he is going to stay upwards. So if we go to Sensing, and bring in key space pressed. Just move this over a little bit. If the key space is pressed, I want to go to Motion, change Y by 10. So I've pressed the green flag, press the space bar. If I hold the space bar down, he does rise. He rises upwards, which is exactly what I want. Okay, but I don't want the space key. I want the up arrow. So every time I press the up arrow, hold it down, he goes upwards. Okay, I'm going to press stop now. And what I do want to do is I'm going to bring in, I need to program 2 more buttons, the right arrow and the left arrow. So if I go to Control, and I'll bring in another if. Now look where I put this if, I put it underneath. So if the right arrow, oh not that's touching, I beg your pardon, if the right arrow is pressed, we're going to change X by 10. So now if I press the green flag, and I press up and right, you'll see my parrot can turn rightwards. And instead of, I'll press stop now, pick him up, there we go. So I can keep him afloat and he can go right. And what goes right must go left. So what I'm going to do now then is bring in one more if and program the left key. And we're going to change X by -10 this time. So now you have a parrot that can move right and left. But the problem we have now is that when our parrot moves to the left, he's flying backwards. And I have never seen a parrot or a bird that can fly backwards. So we need to make sure now that our parrot is flying in the right direction. And we've already used a piece of code at the beginning to make him face this the right way at the beginning. So let's go to point it in direction. And we need to put one of them inside the right arrow and the left arrow. So I'm just going to quickly do that. Point it direction 90, put that to the right arrow, and I'm going to pick another one up and connect it to the left arrow. But instead of 90, we want him to go leftwards, which is -90. So if I press the green flag now, I have a parrot that goes to the right, and now it goes to the left. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. And finally, what we want to do is, as you can see, the parrot can kind of go off the screen. Now, to make this game quite difficult, I want to make sure that if my parrot touches the edge, well, it's completely game over. He's just not allowed to touch the end of the screen at all. So I'm just going to bring in another piece of code now. So let's bring in a new green flag. I'm just going to break our code up here a little bit more. I'm just going to right click here and clean up my code. It's nice and neat. So down here, new green flag and a new forever and a new if. And what I'm going to say to my computer is, if my parrot touches the edge, so we go to touching, and we go to edge. Just zoom in on here now. So if it touches the edge, what's the consequence? Well, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to hide on me. So if I bring in hide here, if I press the green flag, test it, you can see my parrot hides. It's disappeared. And it can be a problem in when you create games in that you can be very good at hiding things, but very bad at bringing them back. But you can see here If we look at this block of code up here, I've already brought my parrot back as soon as I press the green flag. So I press the green flag again, and you can see my parrot appears and disappears then when he touches the edge. So even if I hold the up arrow and go to the top, he disappears if I touch the edge. Excellent stuff. So he hides, but I want the game to stop. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Events and Broadcast Game Over. So I'm going to send a message out to the game that the game is finished. Broadcast Game Over. And then he's going to wait for a second and then stop the game. So if I press the green flag, you can see my parrot is flapping, and then all of a sudden he stops after a second, which is exactly what I want. Okay, so there's loads of code. If I just zoom out here, just look how much code we've got in there. Very impressive. Excellent stuff. So what we're going to do now is our parrot can fly around the screen. He can also, the game will stop if you touch the edge anywhere. So if I just go across here, if I go to the right, and the game is finished. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to bring in our sprite that we are actually going to eat. So I'm going to be eating an apple. So you can choose whatever sprite you want. Here is my apple. So if I press the green flag, I'll just leave my parrot on the screen just to visually appear. And I'm also just going to quickly, just to show you the coordinates. There we go. Okay, so here is my apple. And I want my apple to start somewhere on this side of the screen, opposite to where my parrot is. But every time the game starts, it's going to appear somewhere along this Y line. Okay? So before we do anything, you want to get in the habit of getting the easy code out of the way first. So let's bring in, let's go to looks, and let's set size, and I'm going to change this to 30%. There we go, so that's a nice small apple for me. And let's bring in as well go to. So let's tell our apple where to go. So at the moment it says X195, so I'm going to actually put it on to 200. Press the green flag and you'll see that's where it's gone, which is perfect. Now the next thing I'm going to do for Y, I actually want it to appear anywhere on this line randomly. Okay, and to do that we're going to bring in, go to operators, and we're going to bring in pick random. And these are the numbers we're going to choose. So this is 100, but I want it to be a little bit higher, maybe about here, 150. And see, there's minus 100 there, maybe minus 150. So 150 to minus 150. So if you keep pressing the green flag, you'll see that your apple will appear randomly on that Y line. Okay, which is exactly what we want. Very good. Okay, so you don't have to worry about the direction that the apple is going to face, and you want to make sure that when the game starts, you can actually see it. So bring in show. Brilliant stuff. Okay, and the code for the apple is fairly straightforward, because what we want to do is when the apple touches the parrot, we want it to disappear and reappear somewhere else on the screen. So what we're going to do now is if we go to control, you'll see we have a forever. So let's put a forever in here. Okay, and if, and this is only going to happen if we touch the parrot. So let's go to sensing, and you can see we've got touching mouse pointer, but let's change that to the parrot. So if my apple touches the parrot, what is the consequence? So the first thing I want to do is I want my apple to completely disappear. So let's bring in hide. And then after it's hidden, well, what do we want it to do then? Well, we want it to go somewhere else on the screen. Okay, so we can put it anywhere across this X line, anywhere across this Y line, absolutely anywhere on the screen. So we need to bring in another one of these, another go to. So go to motion and go to. And we need a pick random. Now the X line is a longer one, so we'll actually stick to, from say here, 200, to this one here, minus 200. And for Y, what we're going to bring in then is the same as this one up here. So pick random, 150 to minus 150. Okay, so when you press the green flag, you go in and you eat your apple. Or if I can actually get to my apple. So there's my apple up there. So I touch it, it hides, and that's it. It doesn't come back, and I don't even get a point. So I'm just going to press stop there, and we need to go to data, and we also need to change the score. Now it says lives at the moment. Don't worry about that. We can change it in a second. So hide. Let's change the score by 1. Go to somewhere else on the screen. Now we don't want to bring back our apple straight away, we want to delay. Okay, so we can pick up wait, and let's wait for 2 seconds. And then the simple piece of code then, instead of the opposite of hide, is show. We're going to bring it back. So we press the green flag, and you'll see now that my parrot now, get the apple, there we go. And I've got 2 apples, 3 apples, 4, and I hit the edge and it was gone. So I've got 4 points there. Still had 3 lives. That's because there's nothing to take away my lives yet. So there's the code for the apple, and that's all we need for our apple. Okay, so very good. So very handy to bring that in, and maybe you could bring in more than one later on. Okay, so now it's time to bring in our bad sprite. So let's go to new sprite, and you could choose any sprite you wish. Okay, I'm just going to choose, I'm going to choose a dragon. Okay, and I want my dragon to start very similar to my apple on the right hand side of the screen. So we're going to bring in a green flag here. So when the green flag is clicked, let's get the simple stuff out of the way first. Let's bring in a set size, and we'll make it size 40%. Let's make sure that our dragon cannot go upside down. And let's make sure it faces the right way. So point in direction, minus 90. There we go. And we also need to tell it where to go. So go to, and X is going to be 200. And Y is going to be random. So pick random, and it's going to be the same as the apple. So 150 to minus 150. So you'll see it starts at random places every time the game starts. Okay. And let's bring in a show. Very good. Okay. So we have a show here. So how is our dragon going to move? Well, it's computer controlled because the parrot is our player. The apple is just our sprite that will get eaten and will disappear and reappear. And our bad sprite, our dragon, is the sprite that's going to move around by itself all of the time. So there's the clue in all of the time. So we'll go to control, and we'll bring in a forever. And instead of bringing in any ifs or anything like that, he's just going to move straight away. So go to motion, and we'll bring in move 10 steps. If I press the green flag, you'll see he just zooms off to the edge of the screen. So we need to keep our sprite on the screen, so we bring on if on edge bounce, and you'll see now that my dragon will just keep bouncing left to right. So what we do need to do then is to bring in some random movement. Okay, so we bring in turn. So turn anti-clockwise, and I'm just going to go to operators, and I'm going to bring in pick random, and we'll make him turn 1, 2, 3 degrees. So if I press my green flag now, you'll see that my dragon moves pretty randomly around the screen, and it's your job to avoid the dragon and to collect as many of these apples as possible. But what you'll notice is, as the two of the characters or the two sprites overlap, there's no consequence. We're not losing any lives. Okay? So let me just quickly put on our nice backdrop here, so it just looks a bit better. Okay? So, for my dragon, what am I going to do here? Well, I'm just going to quickly bring in another green flag here, make sure it works properly. And let's bring in a forever and an if. So if my dragon touches the parrot, what is the consequence of touching the parrot? Well, what we're going to do is we are going to firstly go to data and we're going to change lives by -1. Okay, now when I press the green flag, and I'm going to deliberately go into my dragon now, what is, if you look, you see the consequence straight away is it's gone straight to -9. And the reason for that is, if you look at my parrot here, when they cross, there's an overlap, and they're constantly touching in that overlap. You see that? So that'd be -1, -1, -1, -1, -1. And we know how quickly the computer can work, so we need to make sure that there's a little time delay in there. So we're just going to put in a wait 1 second. I'll press the green flag, and you'll see now, if I touch my dragon now, I just only lost 1 there. Okay? Same there, and if I touch him one more time, it stops. Okay? Which is exactly what I want. Alright? Perfect. So when my lives go down to 0, the game stops, and if my parrot touches the edge, the game stops. So what we need to do now is tell our 3 sprites that when the game is over, we want them to disappear. So there's a piece of code in events called when I receive game over, okay? And that is the consequence of when the game finishes, all we want it to do is to hide. So I'm just going to bring in hide, and I'm just going to press the green flag, let my parrot touch the edge, and my dragon should disappear. There we go. Do you see that? Do it one more time, and it just disappears when it's game over. So that piece of code. And I'm going to put that code inside my apple and my parrot. So I'm going to follow my white arrow here, pick it up, place my white arrow on top of my apple, and you can see it here. There we go, and I'm going to place that inside my parrot too. There it is. Okay, brilliant stuff. So now when I press the green flag, and we will die, there we go, brilliant stuff. Okay. So they all disappear. And the final touch in our game then is to quickly create a really cool game over screen. Okay, so let's go and get creative. So go to our stage. Okay, and we are going to now get ready and go into backdrops, and we're going to create our own backdrop. So I'm going to delete this one I don't need, and I'm going to delete this one I don't need. Okay, and we're going to get creative. Now the key to creating our little game over screen is to actually keep our original here, but if you right click on it, go to duplicate. So we've got blue sky and blue sky 2. Now blue sky is going to be the original screen, and blue sky 2 will be the game over screen. So I'm going to click on it now, and you'll see in here we've got our text effects. So if I click on the T, and you can choose your font. So I might choose Scratch, and I might just click somewhere here and just type in game over. Okay, change the color to red, and if you just left click anywhere on the screen, then you'll see you get your little dots, and what you can do is just resize it like such. Okay, so that's where I want my game over to appear. Okay, very happy with that. That's all I'm going to do for my game over screen. So now if I go to my scripts here, we need to tell the computer that when our green flag is clicked, go to looks, and you can see switch to backdrop. So I'm going to click on that one for me. Now blue sky 2 is our game over screen. So when the game starts, do you want to see game over? No. So we just go to blue sky. But then when you go to events, and you'll see when I receive game over, we're going to go to looks and switch to backdrop blue sky 2. Let's test it out. Press the green flag. There we go. Excellent stuff. So anytime, if we go to our code and double check, so if the parrot touches the edge, game over, broadcast game over, this is going to come up. Okay. And take away a life if the dragon touches the parrot. And if the lives equal 0, it's going to be game over too. So we've covered all of our bases here, and that is the fundamentals of our Flappy Parrot game. So for instance, you maybe bring in more apples if you want, different coloured ones to give you different amounts of scores. You can change the scores. Maybe there could be an apple there, you get a smaller score. Okay, maybe you could have other sprites that move quicker. Okay, you could have maybe 2 or 3 of them bounced around the place to make it difficult. Introduce levels or anything like that. Okay, there's loads of things you can do here, especially now since you're used to also creating your own backdrops too. So I hope you enjoyed that exercise, and best of luck in your coding.